There's a moment, quiet, almost invisible, when a woman looks at you not with her eyes, but with something deeper, something ancient, intuitive, and impossible to fake. You feel it before you understand it. A soft shift in her breathing, a subtle pause in her voice, a silence that wraps around you like a question you're not sure you're ready to answer. And in that split second, you realize something you've been running from your whole life. Women don't fall for who you pretend to be. They fall for what your soul reveals when you're not performing. Welcome back to Female Code Unlocked, where we peel back the emotional layers no one else dares to touch. Before we go deeper, take a breath with me. And if you haven't already, subscribe. Not out of obligation, but because something in these words feels like it's speaking directly to the part of you that's tired of guessing and ready to understand. Because tonight, we're not talking about attraction or tricks or charm. We're talking about the quiet truth that separates a forgettable connection from a high-value relationship that shifts the tectonic plates inside a woman's heart. And you'll feel it as we go. You see, once you understand this, truly understand it, everything changes. The way you speak, the way you listen, the way you carry yourself in a room where her eyes drift toward you without her consciously knowing why. And it begins with something no one warns you about. Women read the emotional temperature of a man before they ever notice the shape of his jaw or the width of his shoulders. She scans for the storms he hides. She feels the wounds he masks with confidence. She senses the battles he's fought, the ones he's lost, and the ones he's still quietly bleeding from. But here's the twist. She's not looking for a perfect man. She's looking for a man whose scars haven't poisoned him. A man whose brokenness didn't harden him, but sharpened him. A man who doesn't collapse in moments of pressure because he's already met himself in the dark and made peace with the shadows. That's the secret no one says out loud. Women don't fall for strength alone. They fall for contained strength, the kind that doesn't tremble when the world does, the kind that doesn't beg for attention, the kind that speaks softly because it doesn't need to shout. The moment you understand a woman's emotional world, something inside you shifts, almost silently, almost imperceptibly, but irreversibly. And the strangest part? Women feel that shift before you do. They sense it in your tone, in your presence, in the quiet way you begin to move differently. Part of you becomes calmer, heavier, more certain of itself. It's subtle, but it's the exact kind of subtle that changes how a woman breathes when she's around you. You see, a woman can read your emotional frequency faster than she can read your words. She recognizes the slightest insecurity, the smallest drop in self-respect, the faintest hint of emotional desperation. Not because she's judging you, but because she's wired to protect her emotional world. A woman doesn't guard her heart from your flaws. She guards it from your instability. And this is where everything becomes beautifully, painfully clear. Women don't fall for men who make them feel impressed. They fall for men who make them feel safe to be themselves. Not safe in the physical sense, safe in the emotional sense, safe to soften, safe to express, safe to break, and trust that you won't use her vulnerability as a weapon. That's why, even without knowing it, she watches how you react to life. The small things, the quiet things, the moments when you don't think she's observing you. How you handle pressure, how you respond to disrespect, how you carry disappointment, how you treat yourself when no one is clapping for you. Because here's the dark psychological truth. A woman studies your emotional self-control the same way you study her physical cues. It's instinct, pure biology, pure survival. And when she senses emotional recklessness in a man, even lightly, even subtly, it awakens something in her. A silent fear that she'll be forced to lead instead of follow, to harden instead of soften, to protect herself instead of surrender. That's the moment she pulls back, not because she doesn't care, but because her body refuses to open to a man who isn't anchored within himself. But when you are anchored, when you are steady, when your words match your energy, when your presence feels like an emotional exhale, she feels it. She feels it in the way her shoulders drop when you walk into the room, in the way her voice softens when she speaks to you, in the way her eyes linger long enough to say what her mouth never will. Because a woman can only be deeply feminine around a man who is deeply grounded. She becomes warm when you're steady. She becomes affectionate when you're centered. She becomes emotionally present when you're emotionally contained. This is why everything changes once you understand this. Her behavior is not a mystery. It is a reflection. The softness you crave in her only appears when she feels your strength isn't just physical, not performative, not loud, not forced, but emotional, quiet, stable, unshakable. And the more stable you become, the more she reveals the parts of herself she hides from the rest of the world, her affection, her loyalty, her desire, her trust, and suddenly, she's not distant anymore. She's not guarded anymore. She's not confused anymore. Because you've created the one thing a woman cannot resist, cannot fake, and cannot replace. A man whose presence feels like emotional gravity. There's a moment every man reaches, usually late at night, usually when the room is quiet and the noise of the world finally fades, when he realizes that the hardest part of understanding women is understanding himself. And maybe you felt it too. That uncomfortable awareness that the more emotionally grounded you become, the more clearly you start seeing the hidden patterns in her behavior. The things that used to confuse you suddenly make sense. The push and pull, the warmth and the distance, the softness one moment, the walls the next. None of it is random. None of it is mood swings. None of it is women are complicated. It's all response. It's all reaction. It's all emotional strategy. Silent, instinctive, built into who she is. Because a woman doesn't test you to break you. She tests you to feel you. She pushes not to provoke chaos, but to measure the stability of the ground she's standing on. She needs to know whether your emotions lead you or whether you lead them. And that's why the smallest things become signals to her. When you snap over something minor, when you get irritated too quickly, when you try to prove your worth instead of embodying it, when you seek reassurance instead of offering direction. These moments may feel small to you, but to her, they are emotional fault lines, and she can feel them beneath her feet. But the reverse is also true, and this is where everything opens up. When you respond instead of react, when you breathe instead of explode, when you stay steady instead of spiraling. Her entire energy shifts around you. She becomes gentler, almost effortlessly. She speaks with more warmth, without even realizing why. She leans in, physically, emotionally, even subconsciously, because something inside her whispers, I can relax here. That relaxation is not weakness. It's connection. It's alignment. It's her body's way of saying you are emotionally safe to attach to. And this is where most men fail. Not because they're bad men, but because they misread her cues. When she gets distant, they chase. When she gets emotional, they fix. When she becomes anxious, they lecture. When she pulls away, they panic. But a man who understands women doesn't do any of that. He doesn't chase anxiety, or fight emotion, or try to argue with her feelings. He becomes the emotional gravity she orbits around naturally, not because he demands it, but because he embodies it. When you stop seeking validation, you start holding presence. When you stop trying to prove you're worthy, she starts feeling drawn to you without understanding why. When you stop reacting to every shift in her mood, she starts trusting your emotional leadership. This is the moment when women begin to behave differently around you. Her voice gets quieter. Her arguments get shorter. Her affection gets deeper. Her loyalty sharpens. Her softness flows. Not because she's submitting, but because she finally feels emotionally free. And here's the part most men never realize. A woman becomes the truest version of herself only around a man who is secure enough to hold space for her emotional world. Not control it. Not fix it. Not fear it. Just hold it. And when she feels that from you, the relationship transforms. She transforms. And you transform with her. Once a woman senses that emotional stability in you, something almost primal awakens inside her. It's not about logic, arguments, or even attraction in the conventional sense. It's deeper. It's the subtle acknowledgement that here is a man who won't fracture under pressure, who won't chase fleeting moods, who won't dissolve when emotions surge. And when that recognition hits her subconscious, it creates a quiet but relentless pull, a gravitational force that makes her want to come closer, to trust deeper, to expose parts of herself she's never shared with anyone else. You've probably experienced this without even naming it. That moment when she stops testing you, when the distance between you and her diminishes, when her gestures become soft, deliberate, unguarded. It's not manipulation. It's not a performance. It's a surrender, subtle, slow, and instinctive. And it happens only when she realizes that being emotionally raw around you is safe, even intoxicating. And here's the paradox most men never grasp. You don't earn this by trying harder. You don't get it by bending, performing, or overcompensating. You earn it by mastering yourself, by being the calm in the storm, the lighthouse in chaos, the man who knows his value before she ever confirms it. This is the invisible currency of high-value relationships. It's the force behind her desire, her respect, her emotional intimacy. Because a high-value woman isn't drawn to superficial displays of power. She isn't impressed by flash, wealth, or ego. She's drawn to energy, to the emotional architecture you create. She's drawn to a presence so steady, so self-assured, so sovereign, that it becomes safe for her to let go, to explore the depths of connection she otherwise guards fiercely. And here's what happens when you finally get this. You stop misreading the signs. You stop chasing affection. You stop mistaking distance for disinterest or silence for rejection. You begin to understand the language beneath her words, the subtle shifts in tone, the pauses, the way her gaze lingers. You see patterns where before there were mysteries, and in that understanding, a strange freedom emerges. You no longer feel the need to control her reactions because you understand the truth, that she is already responding to the man you are, not the man you pretend to be. Once you internalize this, the way you navigate women and relationships changes forever. You become magnetic, not because you're performing, but because you're centered. You become high value, not because you chase validation, but because you embody it internally. And in this space, women don't just notice you. They feel compelled to engage, to open, to trust, to desire. This is the essence of what most men never realize. This is the quiet, dark, deeply psychological truth about women. They respond to emotional presence, not superficial gestures. They mirror the energy you carry. They reveal themselves fully only when the ground beneath them is solid, unwavering, and safe. And the man who understands this doesn't just navigate relationships, he transforms them. And through this transformation, he transforms himself. And now you begin to see the invisible threads that connect her actions to her feelings, the tiny, almost imperceptible signals that reveal more than words ever could. The way her fingers linger on the edge of her glass when she's nervous, the subtle tilt of her head when she's curious, the micro pauses in her sentences that betray longing or hesitation. These are not coincidences. These are reflections of the emotional energy you radiate. And once you recognize them, you begin to understand something profound. A woman doesn't act randomly. She reacts. She mirrors the emotional temperature of the man in front of her. When you remain steady in the face of her storms, when you don't flinch at her unpredictability, something almost mystical happens. She begins to trust without reservation. She begins to soften without fear. She begins to invest parts of herself she's guarded her whole life. And in that investment lies desire, loyalty, and emotional depth. You start to notice it in the smallest moments. A lingering glance, a breath that comes closer to you, a subtle smile that speaks volumes. These are her way of telling you that she feels seen, felt, and safe. And here is the dark psychology most men never learn. Women are wired to seek emotional refuge. They are drawn magnetically to men who stabilize them, who hold their own energy even when chaos surrounds them. They don't consciously articulate this. They can't always explain why they are drawn to a man, but their body knows, their mind knows, their instincts know. And if you can master this presence, if you can anchor yourself in calm, confidence, and self-respect, you become a force they cannot ignore. You stop trying to impress her with words, possessions, or gestures. You stop chasing fleeting validation, and instead, you embody a reality that words cannot convey. You are unshakable, consistent, and emotionally sovereign. And in that space, she begins to show you the truth of who she really is. The soft, vulnerable, authentic self she keeps hidden from the world. The self she has only dared to reveal to those who can hold her without breaking. The self she has only dared to open to men who can weather her storms without being consumed by them. And as you witness this, you realize something extraordinary. The most valuable relationships aren't born from grand gestures or intense passion. They are born from the quiet, unspoken understanding between two people, the recognition that one has become a safe harbor for the other's soul. Once you see this, once you truly grasp the psychological patterns behind her emotions and reactions, your entire approach to women changes. You no longer react, you observe, you no longer chase, you become magnetic, you no longer fear her distance, you create connection that runs deeper than words, deeper than attraction, deeper than surface-level interaction. Because once you understand this about women, everything changes. Every glance, every word, every pause becomes a mirror of your own emotional presence. And the relationships you build after this realization are no longer fleeting. They are anchored, profound, and high value in ways most men never experience. You don't just attract women, you draw out their authenticity, their vulnerability, and their deepest emotional investment. And in doing so, you finally understand the secret that has been hidden in plain sight all along. The key to high-value relationships isn't convincing her to stay. It's becoming the kind of man she naturally wants to stay with. And now, everything comes together. The pieces of understanding, the threads of insight, the quiet, darkly beautiful psychology that governs women and high-value relationships. You realize that nothing you have ever done, nothing you have ever learned, nothing you have ever tried to control or force compares to the power of simply becoming the man who is emotionally sovereign, grounded, and unwavering. This is the presence that she cannot resist, the energy that draws her in without effort, the gravity that shapes the entire emotional landscape of your relationship. You see that her moods, her hesitations, her distance, and her warmth are all reflections of the emotional environment you create. When you remain steady, she softens. When you remain calm, she trusts. When you embody consistency, she invests. When you hold presence without seeking validation, she desires. And in that reflection, she reveals herself fully, the vulnerability, the loyalty, the desire, the affection, because she senses that she is safe to do so. This is the ultimate truth of high-value relationships. They are not built on persuasion, effort, or control. They are built on presence, emotional mastery, and the quiet power of a man who understands that women respond to energy, not words, to stability, not performance, to authenticity, not imitation. The man who embodies this truth does not chase. He does not overanalyze. He does not react to every shift in emotion. He simply is. And in being, he evokes her truest self, the part of her that has always longed to be seen, understood, and cherished without fear. Once you internalize this, everything changes. Relationships are no longer games. Attraction is no longer fleeting. Desire is no longer conditional. Connection is no longer shallow. You step into a space where women are drawn to you naturally, trust you instinctively, and reveal themselves fully, because you have become the anchor in a world of uncertainty, the calm in a storm of chaos, and the emotional gravity around which her heart instinctively revolves. So remember this: women do not fall for what you do, they fall for how you make them feel. They reveal, desire, and invest only when the emotional container you create is strong enough to hold them. Master that presence, hold that gravity, become that man. And the relationships, trust, and intimacy you experience will transform forever. This is the secret most men will never discover, and the moment you understand it, everything changes. Thank you for watching. If this resonated with you, make sure to subscribe and turn on notifications, because here on Female Code Unlocked, we explore the psychology behind desire, attraction, and high-value connections, one truth at a time.